Welcome to the Top Order podcast. We are 9 games in to IPL 2025. And on this episode, we're going to take a stock market themed approach to dissecting the action from the first week and a bit in the IPL, talking about who we're going to buy, who we're going to sell, and who we might hold as our stocks. All coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned. Well, boys, a few timekeeping issues this week. Daylight savings and Mother's Day in the United Kingdom. The excuses reeled out by one of the English contingent, who we won't name, as reasons to start the podcast a little bit late, just a lazy 47 minutes late. But we are going to talk some IPL, aren't we? So we are thick and fast with these games coming. 9 games into the tournament, and it will pick up pace, won't it? I think, Baldy, with some double headers and 2 games in 2 days a little bit later in the tournament. But we've been almost sort of a game a day for the last sort of 9-10 days or so. We thought, rather than going through, I suppose, some of those sort of individual scores and sort of game analysis, because it does come around so fast that it's fish and chip paper by the time we get to that stage. The theme for our weekly shows is going to be, along the lines of the stock market. What stock are we buying and investing into? What are we getting rid of quicker? Quicker than Manchester United get rid of managers or something like that. And then what are we holding on to and watching as our stock? So that kind of buy, sell, and hold mentality. I'm going to come to the rack and opinion first. So what are we buying in New Zealand at the moment in terms of our IPL stocks?
I know Baldy wants to talk about an Australian, so I might start us off. And I think we should be really positive. Obviously, we're talking about things we want to buy, and I think we have to be super positive about RCB to start the show. As we record, we're recording before the Sunday night double header, so that there's SRH DC tonight, and then followed by Rajasthan versus CSK. So at the moment, we've got the RCB sitting at the top of the table, and I think we talked about it in our preview of them, how they went with a bit of a different approach this year. It's felt like all stars for them, but this year they feel like they've got a really balanced side. You look at their bowling attack. There's Hazlewood, Yash Dayal. You've got Bhuvi Kumar's in. You've got Virat Pandya contributing. You've got that top order of Salt, Patidar, Kohli, and then you've got guys like Tim David. Even Padikkal showed signs of life. So it's starting to look like a really balanced side, and I think it's all being led at one end by an Australian that you want to rave about, Baldy.
Yeah, I'm buying Josh Hazlewood stock. And 3 years ago, I couldn't believe I would have been saying that from a T20 perspective. But he has been the most effective new ball bowler in this IPL for mine. He's ripped the heart out of both sides that he's played against this season so far. And it's part of the reason why, as I understand it, RCB the only side to go 2-0 to start this tournament. So far, they are the only undefeated team that has played 2 games. So I'm definitely buying me some more Josh Hazlewood stock to go with my already impressive collection of virtual Australian fast bowler investments.
Binksy, do you want to talk about Phil Salt? Because he's been someone that I guess from certain, we talked about him in the preview. He had a fantastic season for KKR as they went on and won the title, moved squads and looks exactly the same player in the IPL. But, I think it struggled a little bit for England. Hadn't really looked quite himself in the Champions Trophy and in some of those T20s. But he looks $1 million again in the IPL and has really led from the front for RCB to start this tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what I've got on my list is I'm buying Wicketkeepers as a general rule. And I think, although Phil Salt's not had the gloves, he's still on Cricinfo, I'm pretty sure, listed as a wicketkeeper. I think the criticism of Salt probably coming into the tournament, and I think I might borrow and butcher a bit of a phrase from Shane Warne. Phil Salt hadn't played sort of 50 one-day games. He'd played the same one-day innings 50 times. And I think what he's tried to do, I think, is go out and do what he does in T20 in a longer format. And they're just different formats, aren't they? So I think that's probably where the struggles came from, I think, for him in the Champions Trophy. But very good. Very good start for Phil Salt. And yeah, I guess moving on more generally for keepers in this tournament. So we've seen Ishan Kishan. I know, again, not with the gloves, but certainly a keeper with that big 100 in that very high scoring game, which we might come on to a little bit later. Jurel's got some runs for Rajasthan. I'll come on to the obvious one at the end. Nicholas Pooran, who kept wicket a little bit last year, has got a couple of scores. Josh Buttler's got a couple of scores after his move to GT from the Royals, and then Quinton de Kock as well, who I can't remember. Someone was telling me he was no good the other day. He was 97 for the KKR. And then, even a couple of cameos from Klaasen as well. And then from a pure keeping perspective, we've seen Mahendra Singh Dhoni with those lightning fast hands, couple of stumpings. I think one of them was Phil Salt, wasn't it? He lifted his foot probably no more than 5 millimeters, or a quarter of an inch in old money, and it was Gomberger. And then a little cameo as well, 30 odd off, 15 or 16 balls, obviously in a losing cause. So look, I'm buying keepers because, they make the world go round, let's be honest.
There's probably a bit of a bias there, Binksy.
Is that
towards keep? Maybe. My stock is around Phil Salt definitely, but I'm buying stock in the RCB batting lineup. I think one of the things that we spoke about a few weeks ago was that teams now taking a strategy to get to really front end their batting, to get their big hitters in earlier, and I think this is really paying dividends for RCB. I've also been impressed. My stock is rising, particularly around Sai Sudharsan FGT. I've been particularly impressed with him, although maybe yesterday got a little bit bogged down. I'm trying to concentrate, and Binksy's coming on with his gloves.
I don't know where this bias is coming from about keepers. Got no idea.
Are they the new ones?
Yeah, anyone just listening on the audios, you've got to get on the YouTube so you can see Binksy flashing his wicket-keeping gloves.
I want to see him pick up his cup of tea with his wicket-keeping gloves on. So
I'm not going to try that.
But yeah, Sai Sudharsan is one to watch for me, or potentially stock rising for me on him.
He's an interesting one because in the preview we wondered whether it was going to be Buttler at the top of the order alongside Shubman Gill for Gujarat, or if it was going to be Sai Sudharsan at 3 or at the top spot. But you're right, I'm also on the train of buying Gujarat's batting lineup. They're one of the sides that have impressed me, particularly so far in the tournament.
Do you think
with their top 3 in particular?
Well, I mean, and maybe when we looked at this side, we went, did they have enough batting? But maybe 3's enough. Like maybe it is. Yeah. If we look back to when they won the competition, it was really their batting lineup was off the back of Shubman Gill having a massive year. I can't remember
Hardik
what he got.
Did well too.
Yeah.
He was batting at 4 or 5.
I think it was Gill that really set the platform for them up top, and they had a brilliant bowling attack, and Hardik managed the side really well. Maybe they do just need 3 players.
Look, it potentially is a rocks and diamonds approach, because if a Hazlewood comes in or someone comes in and goes bang bang in the power play, that's one of the things that I've been watching as well. Is that power play? We'll come on to that later perhaps, but yeah, definitely buying some Gujarat batting. They look pretty solid.
Well, whilst we're on the Gujarat batting, do we want to segue a little bit to perhaps why that might work for them with 3 at the top, and that's the impact player? Has anyone got any oil on that?
I do. I had a little bit of a look at the impact players so far through the first 9 games, because there was a question mark, I think, posted in the comments about whether or not impact players were making a real impact and why aren't we covering them more. So I did a little bit of a look, and I could only really find 1, 2, 3, 4 instances through 9 games where an impact player came into a contest and actually made a big difference to their teams winning.
I would say that's pretty good. 4 out of 9.
4 out of 18.
Oh yeah, okay. Because you got both sides.
Both sides, 9 games, 4 out of 18. So you're at a 25% chance that they come off. Yep. So Samson's 66 off 37. Ashutosh Sharma's 66.
Yeah, which was quite the impact in that game.
Was quite the impact. Sean Marsh's 55.
Sean Marsh.
Or is even his brother Mitchell Marsh, he would have been fine. And then Vinesh Vinesh Puthu was 3 for 32 off his 4 for Mumbai.
He looks a talent,
He looks like he could be quite good. And he's the only bowler that has actually come in and made an impact. Now, in my list, there are 4 A's out of 18. There are lots and lots of D's. In fact, there are as many fail marks as there are pass marks. So there are lots of players coming in and not making an impact that their team would be hoping for. But I think you kind of temper that with the fact that if they were in the first sort of 3 or 4 bowling options, they'd probably be in the 11 anyway. So I think, that you've got to temper expectations around what your 5th or 6th bowler is going to be able to achieve for you in those situations.
Baldy, is that stat though the guys that have come in as the impact player and their impact, or are you counting?
No, I'm not counting the guys
replaced.
No, the guys that have subbed out have actually done better. I mean, it's largely off the back of the fact that Travis Head has made 67. And where's his other innings? He was in here somewhere else as well. And he was subbed out a second time, 47 off 28. I gave him a B+ for that. But, Marsh was subbed out 72 off 36. Arya 47 off 23. And then CV Varun was subbed out for KKR, 2 for 17 off his 4, which was a terrific performance. So, yeah, much more likely that your guy being subbed out has actually done a good job for you than the guy coming in. It's statistically through the first 9 games at least. But those batters have been going off.
I know this is sort of moving into a different area because, but while we're on the impact players, I do wonder sometimes about whether the impact player, bringing the impact player, particularly in your batting lineup, can also muck things up. Because, I mean, again, maybe this isn't quite the impact player, but, you mentioned Dhoni before, Binksy. We've got him, coming in at 8 and 9 at different times. We've got Shimron Hetmeyer coming in at 8 for Rajasthan. We've got, people like Tim David coming in really far down the order. And I still can't get my head around this as even Hardik Pandya was below Robin Minns, I think, for Mumbai in the last game. And it just doesn't really... I know we've been watching T20 cricket for a long time. I know that you hear about finishers and they want to bat for 15, 20 balls and all this stuff, but I can't understand why you would want a player who's not as good as the player coming... Like, what, can anyone explain to me? Maybe Tim David's a different example than those other guys, but... Like, why is Shimron Hetmeyer batting so low? Why can't Hardik Pandya? Why is he not equipped to come in with 8 overs, 9 overs to go and try and win that game for Mumbai than someone like Robin Minns, who's clearly just not as good as Hardik?
Yeah, look, I'll have a stab at it, and it's not going to be with statistical analysis. Maybe, Baldy might have some views on the mathematics behind it, but I think. Listening to some of the players talk about the way that rules impacts the game of cricket, and the example that springs to mind, and I know we're talking about impact players and kind of that lower order impetus, but Moeen Ali was talking, for example, about the way that the number of players outside the circle in a one-day game influences your tactics so much and influences the game so much. I think that this rule impacts it in a way whereby I think the value of that. And use Dhoni as an example. They want him to come in and strike at 220 or 250 for a really, really short period of time. So I think that either there's someone with a gut feel, but I think it's actually more likely that there's someone there with a calculator and a complex algorithm that says that someone coming in and getting 18 off 3 balls or 24 off 6 balls is much more impactful than them coming in and striking at 150 over 20 balls potentially, in the context of what that brings at the right time in that innings where they're coming in at 7, 8, 9 in the batting order. And I think we'll see Dhoni move around a hell of a lot, won't we, throughout the course of that. I just think it is, look, again, a lot about that momentum at the right time in the game. And there's probably a number of guys now that can come in and strike at that 140, 150, 160. How many are there that can really come in and do what the likes of a Dhoni or I'll use an English example that I'll get ridiculed for in the comments, I'm sure, but a Liam Livingstone is a similar one. He comes in and he just gets that driving range swing out from ball one. So I don't know the stats behind it, but that'd be my take on why that's been used as a little bit of a tactic.
It feels a little bit like a free hit for some of the impact players. Like you're looking to get a spike, in terms of your trajectory of scoring. You're looking to get that spike that takes your run rate or your average above the opposition for, I don't know, 5-6 deliveries, and then by doing that, you then maybe create momentum. And it feels like with Mumbai Indians yesterday, it seemed a bit odd that the impact player came in, but it did feel a bit like, it's like, well, cannon fodder, like just go off and tee off, and if it comes off, great. If not, we've still got other players that can come in.
And from a stats perspective, it's pretty much a toss of the coin, right? Because for every Devdutt Padikkal that comes in as an impact player who was 10 off 10, or Tripathi 2 off 3, Robin Mins 3 off 5, Dubé 9 off 12, you've got Sampson 66, Marsh 50, Sharma 66, Rutherford 46. I've got one more on the list somewhere. So there are plenty of examples of that impact player coming off. But, I mean, if you have a look at those names, Sampson, Rutherford, Marsh, Ashutosh, they're gun players, right? You're bringing in a gun player to do a job.
Well, and they'd be in the side anyway. I think it's more it's balancing your side.
That's what I don't like about some of the sides who are sending in players above better players, because I think you've got to put your good players, your winning players, in as much a position to succeed as you can. And I as far as giving Mins a free hit or Tripathi a free hit or whatever, I don't think that is the best avenue for success. And I think the Mumbai team will probably in their planning room admit that they got it wrong last night against Gujarat, because that did not come off for them. And I'm not going to say it cost them the game, but it certainly didn't help them win the game, right?
It didn't seem to make any sense either, like for the reasons that you've discussed. They'd got better players that were ready to come in, rather than send the impact player in. But it could be, like we're saying, that they are looking for that shift in momentum over, a micro element of the game, 3-4 deliveries rather than 5 or 6 overs.
Yeah, look, let's move on. It could just be that we're 45-year-old grumpy old men who think that you've got to you don't want to upset mother cricket. Potentially there is something in this, and I'm sure we'll see more. We'll see some more statistical analysis. Yeah, I'm prone to agree. If someone's good enough to bat number 4, then they probably shouldn't be coming in at number 12. We talked briefly about Mumbai there. Has anyone got them on their list to buy or dare I say it, sell?
Do you want to go?
Well, I don't. You'd be a brave person to buy them. I suppose their odds have probably drifted. So maybe if you are going to,
they started the betting at 4-1, and then they've obviously with 2 losses, they've now drifted out. I still can't believe it, only to 8-1. So there's still obviously some money going on to them. But yes, odds have doubled. I think even my maths is good enough to tell me.
What's your problem with Mumbai?
Well, I just don't understand. I mean, I think, I said to you before, it's I just can't, this George Bush quote, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I got that right, eh?
You got the actual quote right. And George W. Bush butchered it terribly.
Okay, good. But, I feel that in my, just coursing through my veins about Mumbai, last year, we saw this, stacked batting lineup. We thought, okay, cool, they're going to be great. Like, they'll go on and smash all these runs. Just didn't happen. They were not good last year. This year, I did the exact same thing. Looked at the lineup and went, Rohit, Rickleton, Sky, Tilak Varma, Hardik Pandya. Look at all these guys. Even guys like Namandir, all these players that are just fantastic cricketers. And thought, oh well, they'll have, yes, Bumrah's not there, but surely they'll be able to get runs. And their batting lineup is just woeful. Why are they so bad?
Not to pick on you, but in the preview show, you did say that Mitchell Santner would make them all better, and that he's an.
Well, he's not
player.
getting much of a chance, is he?
But now
he's batting 8 or 9.
He's free from blame now in the don't get enough runs department. I'm just trying to wind you up here, obviously, but The batting is a problem, right?
But how is it a problem? I mean, Rohit failing twice is probably...
The opening partnership in the power play is the problem, right? Both Rickleton and Rohit haven't got them off to a flyer yet. And if you have a look at their power play scores and then their total output, 160 and 155 is not enough to win you IPL games of cricket. No. We should be looking at them aiming for much, much higher scores than that. They have not got off to a good start, and they have not been able to put enough runs on the border as a result. And Hardik's called them out for it. He said that their batters have to come to the party because without Jasprit Bumrah, they need to be targeting minimum 200 to 220 every game to give their bowling cohort a chance to defend that. And at the moment, they're not getting nearly enough. They are 50 to 60 short every game for the first 2 games at the moment, regardless of the conditions.
Yeah, it just hasn't been good.
It looked pretty disjointed, I thought, in the field. Like, it looked like lots of voices, lots of captains appearing to have opinions, bowlers maybe not executing plans as well. So, setting
some
up
schoolboy stuff, wasn't there? With the through the legs for 4, drop catch. There was that 4 overthrows. Yeah,
it just looked fragmented. It looked like, we spoke previously about role clarity and players, teams having good setups, established lineups, and having clear understanding of what it is they're trying to do. They just look a little bit all over the shop, despite the talent that they've got in the team. And I think, like I say, in particular, the body language picked up on that. Didn't think it was great. A few errors, but also just the number of voices that appeared to be into some of the bowlers appeared to be a lot. And I think sometimes that's not a great indication of where the leadership structure is out of a team.
Yeah, I think the one thing I would say is it gets turned around pretty quickly when you've got that much quality at the top of the order, though. So I think Will Jacks as well comes into the conversation to an extent. He has been pretty good on the franchise circuit over the course of the last 18 months or so. So I do think that they've got that ability. All of a sudden, one of those guys, whether it's Sharma, whether it's Rickleton, whether it's Jacks, clicks, and then you've got Sky coming in at 4. It's a different gravy. And then Lip, you are getting to those scores, or I think Baldy, you said they need to be in and around that 200 marker, and I think they will be. And then I think that's where probably the influence and the calming influence of having those leaders in the side, albeit Rohit Sharma and Mitchell Santner, who lead their countries respectively on with the formal armband. I think when you've got those guys and you've got Trent Bolt, that they're then going to be really calm.
You've got Sky as well. Yeah. Sky's the T20 captain for India.
He's the captain, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think you've got that scenario, I think, where they then go, right, we know what we're doing to close out a game of cricket. But yes, you can't really play T20 unless one of your top 3 gets you off to that, that start. That power play is just so important.
I think that's part of Mumbai's problem at the moment is they actually have too many captains on that cricket field. They've got Hardik is trying to find his way. They've got, there's 3 or 4 other guys that all captain either their own franchise or their international side. How is Hardik able to get his voice heard through all of that din? And that's what comes across in the field. There's lots of guys standing there with double teapots. There's lots of, things being shouted at different players. And I think they've got to get their house in order pretty quickly. And they can't get Jasprit Bumrah back quick enough as far as I'm concerned, because if they continue in this form, their chances of making the semi-finals will be gone before Hardik and Bumrah can fire a shot.
I mean, it does feel like, waiting for Bumrah. That's probably a soap opera or something like that. But it feels that that's a little bit like what is happening. It's like, we just need to wait and get him back, and then all our problems will be solved. But there's a lot of eggs in one basket.
What else are we selling, boys? Come back to maybe you, Jamie.
Review of wides. I'm getting rid of that. That's just bobbins. What is that about? Surely it's not that difficult to call a traditional wide. Maybe the side-on wide, maybe a bit more challenging, but the amount of time it takes to get those reviews, I thought VAR was bad in the Premier League, but this is like 2-3 minutes for a wide. I mean, that for me, it's not a player, it's not a team, it's a rule thing. I'm not liking it. But it could be because I'm a middle-aged man.
No, I like
So-
that. We can't slow down cricket anymore. I'm completely with you, Jamie.
They've got the lines, they've got the crease lines, and I was, the games I've seen over the last few days, like umpires can clearly see it, but because now there's the element of, or the opposition, the bowling team can review, or both teams can review. I'm now not going to give it, or I'm going to, and it's like, just make a decision. Like, it's not that difficult. You've been making these decisions all of your umpiring career, probably around wides. Just do it now. And it just takes too long. So it's like you say, Baldy, it's slowing it down. Get rid of it for me.
I'm assuming, being cynical, I'm assuming it's a little sponsored slot, isn't it? It's the, IPL wide sponsored by Mumbai Cement when they go to the review. So maybe it's.
Well, it's controversial because aren't the umpires sponsored by a different cement company? I think I'm looking at you.
Paying too much attention. I have no idea about
I was making up the
It's on the
cement
back of their
company.
jerseys.
I was making up the cement company board. My point was, I think, is it just an opportunity to get a sponsor slot on there whilst they review the wide? So someone's paid a lot of money for that.
What are you selling, Binksy?
What am I selling?
Move us on. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I am selling seam bowling in T20 cricket. There you go.
Okay.
And more specifically, I think for me, it's about, and we've seen a little bit of this, and maybe Jamie will talk to me about some form of affinity bias or something like that. But maybe it's because England picking some extreme pace in that T20 that Champions Trophy that went all round the park. We've seen Jofra Archer get harshly dealt to. We've seen we've seen Pat Cummins go for 60 off his 4 overs. So I'm just seeing a little bit of a changing of the tide that some of these batters aren't really concerned about how quick it comes. It's how quick it goes. And we're seeing a few seamers rack up some air points. There you go.
I think that's fair enough. I mean, the something I heard the guys talking about, actually, the Crick Info guys, when they were talking about Shardul Thakur, actually, and I mean, he's a story, isn't he, from this first week of how he's come back from being unsold, and a few years ago he was sort of one of the big buys at different points, and I think he's supposed to be overplaying county cricket at the moment, but has come in with all these LSG injuries, picked up a couple of wickets in his first game, and I think in his first over, made a big impact, and then picked up 4 for in this latest game. And they were talking about bowling craft, and I think that he's shown that in these couple of games by, well, firstly just being able to swing the ball and being able to put batters in some doubt. And I think that's the key thing that these bowlers have got to do. I mean, you look at Prasadhi Krishna last night, he was able to do that in terms of the way he was using his slow balls and change-ups and being able to kind of read the pitch. And I think what your point really, Binksy, is around you can't just be quick, or you can't be one-dimensional anymore as a seam bowler, I don't think. I think you have to have lots of different skills in your bag and be able to see the pitch and go, okay, like today I'm not going to bowl anything like this. I'm going to bowl all my change-ups, or I'm going to dig it in short, or I'm going to bowl only Yorkers and bouncers, or whatever it is. And I think if you're not capable of doing that, or you don't have this sort of bowling craft, I think it was Nick Knight who said it on Crick Info, and it really struck with me.
He's talking about bowling craft, didn't he?
Well, it was him and Pujara, I think, and they were saying, well, look, we've never bowled many balls, but we've faced a lot of good bowlers, and that's what the best ones had. And it really stuck with me about, when you see the best bowlers now, then they're not the guys that run in and bowl the quickest, or the ones that swing it the most. They're the ones that are the smartest, and it's really showing, I think, in this IPL so far.
How different is that though to spin bowlers? Because I think we could say the same about spinners, that you can't just be the off break bowler. You've got to have various pace. You've got to have the arm ball. You've maybe got to develop like variations around the crease and so forth. So I guess what you're saying, Stu, is that the one-dimensional bowler is kind of gone. That ship has sailed. It's now you've got to have multiple tools in the armoury to even get a look in. And perhaps what you're saying, Binksy, is that with the pace bowlers, maybe the Archer Cummins, it is typically they've gone, right, I'm just going to fire rockets down and see what happens.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily want to focus too much on it being Archer and Cummins, although Archer hasn't played a lot of cricket in the last 2 years. And I think we talk about this evolution of the game. We've got a couple of factors that really don't go for you as a bowler at the moment, which is there's an impact player rule. And then I think that, the second component is these grounds are pretty small by general international standards. We've got some kind of mid 50 and early 60 metre boundaries. And I think you've got the ability to play 360. So, again, I don't want to go back to it, but, back in our day, if you were a Darren Gough and you could fire the ball right up into the block hole and bowl Yorkers, and particularly at the death of a one-day innings, that was really difficult to get away. Now you've got a guy who's willing to sort of, put his head down like a tortoise and flick it over his head reverse scoop style to third man. They've got so many options, and that pace is really just helping to do that. And I think, yes, I'm sure there's batters that are still, I'm not going to say scared of extreme pace, but I think you'd be lying if you said there's not a little bit of, wow, that's quick and it gets your beans going as a batter. But they've got the tools now to deflect and ramp and play all these shots that make it, back to Lippy's point, you need craft as well as just being able to execute that one skill of bowling full fast and straight. If you're, if you're a few millimeters off, you're toast, I think. And yes, that's the same for spin. It absolutely is. But yeah, we've got a show to make, Jamie, and I think, I'm selling seam bowling. There you go.
Yeah, we saw that with Patirana, didn't we? That, he ran up, hit Kohli in the head, and then, not that long later, Kohli gets another short one and Kohli just dispatches him. Your pace point, I don't, you said maybe there's a little bit of fear. I don't know that there's any fear in any of these guys about any of this pace anymore. I just think that
I think that nobody is truly, I don't think anyone is truly comfortable when the ball's around 150 Ks an hour. I think,
at your armpit.
Yeah, we had a look at, I'll give you an example. Lockie Ferguson, when he came and played that international series here the year before last, I think he was bowling 150 Ks an hour in some of those white ball games we were watching here live in New Zealand, and batters were uncomfortable facing him at genuine pace. I think the difference is that in the IPL in particular, unless you have subtlety in your variation, you are going to go the distance. Gone are the days where Brett Lee would bowl 145 Ks an hour pace on and 119 Ks an hour pace off, and players were so looking for the searing fastball that his 119 K an hour really slow out the back of the handball was fooling guys. That doesn't happen anymore. You've got to have subtlety and multiple variations of different types of slower ball, different types of ball into the wicket to be able to fool batters. Because if you are straight up and down, you get murdered in the IPL. Bats are so big, grounds are so small, players are so strong that there is no chance for the bowler unless you are 100% on the money in terms of your skill and your execution. Can I sell something quickly, Binksy, while we were
Go for it, mate.
While we're selling? I'm selling Ashwin batting above Jadoo and MS Dhoni for CSK. We talked about impact players coming in. This is a strategy for me that is not working for CSK. If they are going to be championship contenders rather than pretenders, we need to get Jadoo and Dhoni facing slightly more balls and Ashwin coming in behind them for mine, because that strategy just did not work. And to be fair, I love Ashwin, but him bowling in the power play also not working for me. I am selling that, but I'd like to see more of Noor Ahmed plus Dhoni as a combo. I'm buying that combo. So I'm selling some CSK, but buying some more CSK, particularly the keeping Binksy, because I love that stumping.
CSK are a fascinating side from these first couple of games, aren't they? Because, particularly for me, I look at that lineup and think and start to wonder, maybe this is going to upset Binksy because I know how much he loves him, but is Sam Curran actually worthy of an overseas slot anymore? We talked about the seam bowlers kind of going the distance. He's another one who he batted 5 in that last game. They've kind of got a lineup where they've got players, sort of some of these players like, Gaikwad looked really good in that first game. They've got Rachin who's looking really good. But apart from that, they've got Dubé who came in as an impact player. They're batting. You talked about it in the preview, I think, Jamie. There's just so many all-rounders I feel like they would actually benefit from getting a few more specialists in there. Again, maybe I'm biased. I want another Kiwi in there, but I think you get one of those overseas. You get it Curran out, you put in Devon Conway up the top, and then suddenly you've got a bit more steel in there, and then you can bring in. Yeah, I agree with you. I've never really understood why Jadeja doesn't take more responsibility with the bat for CSK. I mean, again, maybe it's biased because I feel like every time he plays against New Zealand, he looks awesome. So I don't know why he doesn't bat higher up. And I think when he was captain, maybe he did it a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. They're just a weird side, and this is a formula they've gone with for a long time. Getting a lot of multi-dimensional players. It's worked for them in the past. But yeah, they're a real mystery to me, and they're a side that I'm watching for so many different reasons.
Yeah, you've kind of got my heckles up with the Sam Curran comment because I think as I've said, he'll score more test runs than Jack Callis. That one didn't age particularly well, and was taken massively out of context as well. But I don't buy that in this format. I think. I don't buy bringing in a batter for an all-rounder and that, long-term being the thing that's going to make the difference to the side. And that's really down to one simple thing. We're talking about form, and form changes very, very quickly. And Devon Conway's been, let's be honest, horribly out of form. So what's to say he comes in and scores runs? Sam Curran gives you 2 bites of the cherry. He's got the capability of scoring proper runs. Like he's got the ability to score you a 70 or an 80 batting in the top 5 in a T20 game, and he's also really, really capable of taking 3 or 4 poles as well. So for me, that balance of him and Ravi Jadeja in that kind of middle and lower middle order. That's why I think he's gone round the world and played a lot of franchise cricket, and I'm pretty confident he'll turn that form around. But yeah, certainly one to perhaps keep an eye on.
On the CSK thing, and maybe it's not for us because we probably can't answer this question, but Indian fans watching on YouTube or listening to the show, can someone tell me what's going on? What's happened in the last couple of years with Deepak Hooda? I mean, I just honestly do not understand. That guy was, made an Indian side, and then now it's just completely. He just seems to have kind of gone. He's playing for CSK, but he just doesn't seem to be able to score a run. Didn't seem to be able to score one last year. It's bizarre.
I can't help. Jamie can't help. Baldy doesn't look like he can help. Hopefully, the comments can help. Let's move on to what we hope is the final little segment of the show. So. What are we watching? What are we keeping an eye on, but not quite ready to offload, or get on the phone to our broker and buy? Where are we gonna start with this one?
I've got a couple of quick ones to watch. I think games at Hyderabad and Ahmedabad. If you're interested in run fests, particularly on their middle pitches, it seems to be. If you play on the pitch to the right or the left, I think you're likely to get ones that stick. But if you're interested in runs fests, get yourself to there. Get yourself to those 2 venues. And the other one to watch is I've been really impressed with Sai Sudharsan for GT. I've seen him in both games, and I just think I've been really impressed with him. And it's not necessarily a novel comment, but I just think when we're talking about multi-dimensional bowlers and spinners, he seems to have quite an abundance of that. So I've been impressed with kind of how he stepped up and the contributions he's made for GT. So they're my 2.
Binksy, do you want to chime in with your watch? Because I think it falls off the back of one of those.
A little bit with Jamie and the high scoring. I think we are going to see someone get to 300 in this IPL. I think as Jamie's pointed out, there's a couple of grounds that are conducive to this. There's some short boundaries that are conducive to this. There is some extreme pace that's going the journey that's conducive to this. And then there's also the impact player rule as well. So I think when all those things converge, we are going to see a side get to 300 in this format. And for what it's worth, I think as we see one day cricket evolve, I think we'll see a 500 there soon as well, in the 50 over form of the game. But yeah, that's my little bet. So yeah, there you go.
It's so weird, that we're talking about a side that can get to 300 in a T20 game, and we looked at we've just had the Champions Trophy, and that I don't know, no games in Dubai. I mean, obviously completely different pitches, but like no games in Dubai made it to 300 in a 50 over format in the whole of that tournament. So it is really bizarre. But I mean, look, Sunrisers are the prime side that looked like they could get there. I mean, obviously it didn't go as well for them in the second game, but I mean, Travis Head, if you want to talk about another Aussie ball there, he's kind of just picked up where he's sort of left off. Ishan Kishan, you mentioned before. I loved Ishan Kishan's celebration, actually. He looked like he really was trying to fit, I mean, a lot of people have talked to us about how this is a really important year for him, and how, if he wants to kind of get back into this Indian side and kind of refresh his international chances, this is the tournament that he really has to show. And I mean, he got burgled down the leg side in the second game, but that first one rode his luck a little bit early on, but then, just started hitting it so cleanly. And you could see that he feels this season is big for him. He feels, he wanted to make a contribution to this side. So, if we're talking about that team, and I don't know, just even like Aniket Verma has looked like a lot of people pumped his tires up to me on the comments, and he sort of looks like he could certainly live up to that. So yeah, I don't know. It's certainly on the cards if you ask me. This 300. What do you got for us, Baldy?
What are we watching, Baldy?
Well, I've already covered it. We're watching impact players, and I'm watching Mumbai really closely, particularly their batting lineup. We've already talked about that. Stu's selling them. They're on my watch list, particularly that opening partnership of Ryan and Rohit. They are absolutely on my laser watch list for the next couple of games. They've got to pick their socks up.
I just mentioned the Sunrisers before, that I am watching their bowling attack. I'm only 2 games. Obviously, the first game they scored 280, so maybe conceding 240 is not too much of a concern. But then they did get fairly easily run down. They're trying to defend 190 in that second game, and on paper it looks like it's a bowling attack that can do the job. You've got Cummins, you've got Shami, you've got Harsh Patel, who I thought's actually added a lot to their attack this year. Then we've got Zampa, who, Baldy rated the number 1 white ball leg spinner, which hasn't quite shown itself in these first couple of games at least.
He's gone 1 for 48 off 4, 1 for 46 off 4, coming in for Travis Head as an impact player. So he's not had a great impact. I gave him D- in both of those performances.
Yeah, and look, Samarjit Singh, he's been gone air miles at times, kind of gone different points, but I'm watching them for what they do and how they sort of, again, balance their side. They've got options with people like Rahul Chahar. They've got, Unadkat. So there are other people that they might like to bring in and get a bit more out of. Maybe they decide that, they could bring in Rahul Chahar for Zampa, kind of hope that they can get, Zampa light from Rahul Chahar, and then be able to bring in someone like Ishan Malinga or Wian Mulder or someone else to I don't know, get a bit more out of that. So it's very much, again, a watch for me, because their batting looks like we're going to get enough runs for the most part from that side. Is this bowling attack going to be able to defend under anything under 220 in this tournament?
Yeah. Absolutely, and I think it's tough being an overseas spinner in this tournament. But I think he's look, as much as it pains me to say it, Baldy's right. He's probably in the top couple of one-day international leg spinners, white ball spinners. I still think Adil Rashid's a better bowler, but yeah, there's definitely an affinity bias there,
mate. It's tough to argue either way, right? I would completely agree with you if you made a strong case for that. And look, bowlers are going to go air miles. Bowlers are going to go air miles in this tournament. I think that's just a fact, right? And it's the bowlers who are playing the better defense at the moment that are really in the middle overs and the late overs that are winning games for their team. I think that the opportunity exists in the risk-taking in the power play at the moment. And that seems to be where teams are doing the most damage to their opposition. And it just comes back to the impact that Hazlewood's had among among a couple of others, but he's been the standout performer because he's been able to knock the top off of some of those sides that RCB have played against.
Yeah, and we have seen the last couple of games. As we're recording this, the last couple of games have been under 200. So the bowlers are showing some fight back. And to Jamie's point about different grounds, we're going to see how this emerges over the next few weeks. We'll get it. We'll at least for us as overseas viewers of this, we're going to get a sense of, okay, what can we expect at this ground a bit more than, I guess what the Indian fan base know more than us, and at least what to expect out of this. So, yeah, I think that's, again, I think there are, we saw it at Chennai, obviously, that in that first game that they played, the score, I don't think I'd be very surprised if we see 300 there, for example. So, I think we're going to get a bit of variation around, which again is something that I like about a tournament like this, that we can get wide variations about where you play, and your home advantage can play a big part.
Yeah.
I think we've had some insights from sort of the post-match interviews around players talking about, we've played on this particular pitch today because of our opposition or whatever. So there is an element of home advantage coming out, then preparing a faster deck versus one that's a bit stickier or one that's going to hold. So, yeah, I think that's really, really interesting to kind of see how that plays out as we get further into the tournament and the games becomes more on them in terms of knockout and so forth.
Well, that's probably a good place to end it. I think, Lip, you make a really good point. Obviously, lots and lots of Indian fans who are probably closer to this both geographically and in terms of their affinity. So please, drop some comments into the stuff below if you're on YouTube, or send us an email if you're listening to the podcast, the top of the podcast at gmail.com, if you've got anything you want us to cover on upcoming editions. But we're, certainly in the UK, Jamie, me and you have got 2 hours, 2 minutes until the Delhi Capitals and the Sunrisers game gets underway. So I don't know whether we're going to be able to get that on the TV during Mothering Sunday. I'm not sure how well that will go down. But plenty of games coming up this week in the IPL 2025. We'll be back probably midweek, with some musings from either New Zealand or from the UK, and then back again next Sunday or thereabouts with our This Week in Cricket, where we'll look at what stock tips we should have really made, and how bankrupt we all are in our trading accounts after today's musings. But for now, it is going to be good night and God bless from us here on the Top Order podcast, and we'll see you next week. See you soon.